YouTube, I'm Aaron from Lone Star Drift, and we're on Drift Week right now, running around filming stuff as fast as we can. We're here at Rad Industries today with Dan Burkett, Rad Dan as he's known, and this is his Supra. Did I get all that right for your intro?
That is right. What's up, guys?
And I have just like a list of questions I'm gonna ask him, but in this video, I wanna talk about, this is his Formula D car, how long he's been running it, and he's just about to take it apart and turn it into a 2022 setup. He has a limited amount of time, probably a limited budget. You know, the crew, everything has limitations and everything is a choice. How are you going to apply those resources to be as competitive as possible in Pro 1, Formula D, the top of the food chain for drifting? What are you going to do to like try and win the series next year with the resources that you have?
So, going into, we stopping for that one? Oh,
nope, keep going.
So, going into that question, we kind of base what we can do. Yeah, it's definitely budget and time, like you said, but then it's like, why would we even need to make a change? So you're going to have issues throughout the previous year, which would have been this year, 2021 season. So we have a couple issues that we're like going to make a little checklist of like, we didn't like how this was to work on, let's say, like ease of working on a race car at the track, or this could have been better, or we have the money to upgrade this that'll help us, you know, be more competitive next year. So some of the things we're going to change are like very basic things. We're not going to change power plant. We're not going to change power. We're going to add a different form of nitrous instead of just doing a single jet, which actually you could see my intercooler's off right there. And I just had one like, you know, dry shot that would go in and mix. We're going to do direct port, so it's more exact per cylinder, which is going to be better for like the tune and hopefully no issues, because I did have it where it was getting too much in cylinder 4. Had to like, I cooked a head and had to replace the head. So that's one thing. Another thing we're going to change is radiators started to get hot on the second run in the really humid states of the East Coast, so we're doing like a slightly larger radiator. And then like I'm gonna try and make like a mesh thing that blocks, like it gets so full of rubber and like debris. So try and fix that. Those are really simple things. And then EGTs for the exhaust. And then pretty much that's the majority of it. And so that's actually a really small list. But if you can think about it, I've been running this car since I started FD. I did Pro 2, there was no Pro Spec, Pro 2 with it. And then I did all the seasons of Pro 1 with it. So that's 7 years of me learning and replacing and upgrading each year and spending what I could on it. So we kind of ripped it halfway apart already. The motor's still in it, but most of the other stuff is out. So we're getting a quick jump start on it, because if everything goes as planned, maybe the end of January, beginning of February, I could go get some testing, because that would be what you really need most is, you know, seat time.
So I kind of am going to go in two directions here.
Okay.
One, I can think about, why is the car not going to need so many modifications to go into the next season? And two, oh, I already forgot my number 2. But I guess you've already had such a developed chassis that you're happy with the results you've had in previous seasons and the performance of the car, and you're not going to go crazy. Because a lot of teams, they make huge changes and stuff. I have such a scattered brain. Go ahead.
I forgot a couple of things.
I was going to say, and what's the limitation of why? Because we saw such rapid development 5 to 6 years ago in the chassis, the cars, the engines. We saw horsepowers going crazy. They doubled. Why are we seeing a plateau of all that now? That makes sense?
That does make sense.
That's two different things.
So like,
huge shout out to all the sponsors of Drift Week, starting with BC Racing Custom Coilovers, who support more grassroots and professional drifters than any other coilover company. Thank you to WhatMonstersDo.com for supporting all of our content for so long, including our Japanese content. Use the discount code EBISU on their website for a discount. Thank you to NK Wheels. They make so much cool stuff, all the way from my drift wheels all the way up to F1 wheels. Thank you to ECU Master for supporting grassroots guys all the way up to the best driver in the world, James Dean. Thank you to Yplay Imports. If you need a rad right-hand drive car from Japan, hit up Trenton at Yplay Imports and get them before the prices get too high. And thank you to Drift HQ for bringing in that support vehicle. And congratulations on everything that you've been doing this year, Drift HQ. You are killing it.
There's a couple more things I forgot to say that we're going to change. And I didn't like explain what the list was the previous year. The previous year, you guys don't have time to hear all that. But last year,
we have all the time in the world.
Okay, last year was like a pivotal thing that we found a lot of like stuff in the chassis and just suspension basically that we never found years before. We always change something every year, like you're saying, but we're like a smaller team. We don't have the budget to just redo the whole thing or start with a new car. So we keep changing like front spring rate, and we actually got a different coilover in the back that has longer stroke and made like the top of the coilover comes up inside the chassis to allow for like maximum amount of travel and droop. That in itself helped like more than anything I think in the past couple of years, because I would like constantly in like certain situations bottom out. When you bottom out, you have like infinite spring rate and the car gets real loose, and then you mash on the gas when it's at that loose point. You just watch like your competitor drive away from you. You're like, oh my God. And there's not much you could do at that point. So we dialed that in the back. We also went up in a spring rate in the front, and then it helped the car be much more manageable. I know this isn't saying a lot, but I've had a fair share of wrecks in my time.
We all have.
Yeah, I didn't replace the front or rear bumper all last year. I never got towed off the track. There was 0 crashes, that was pretty cool. And I think it's because the car finally does exactly what I'm asking it to do, and it's not, throwing, like a wrench in the mix of something. I'm like, what are you doing? And I'm fighting the car. So we are gonna try even going higher front spring rate, so the front's even less gripped up. It's like real slippery up there, but once you're in drift, it's doing what you're asking it to do. So we're gonna attempt different spring rate changes in the front, but we got to do track testing. That's a simple thing we're gonna change. And then so that kind of answered part of one of the questions. Maybe you have a question again, but then the other question you asked is probably based on tire wear. So it kept going oh my God, this guy made 1,200 horsepower, whatever. And now the people that do make 1,200 that can get 2 laps out of the tires, which would probably be a Nitto driver only, then they stay with that much horsepower. Or maybe they have even more than that. But we make just under 1,000 horsepower. And if I was putting it on the max boost setting, because sometimes I'll run it less, 800, depends which track. And you added too much wheel speed, which might make more smoke and might be fun to drive it that way, you will never get your second lap. So you're kind of just limited by the tire, and then you got to do a bunch of tweaking on suspension and get your car to be as fast as it can in the power band that it has to keep up with the other dudes, and you're just stuck there.
So do you think we are seeing quite a plateau in the builds and everything, or do you think there's going to be something that comes out that changes the game as much as the SC430 for Daigo did, back in whatever time frame? I don't even know when that was. 2013.
There will be. There has to be.
What do you think that's going to be?
I feel right now it's those Mustangs. It's not I like Mustangs, but those freaking cars are fast. You watch it, and it's whenever you think someone has their car hooked up and dialed for that track, those Mustangs can just surge in and get. It's where'd they come from? They can. I don't know, because the way they have their nitrous set up, where they can tune it per lap, basically. I think, and I'm not sure. I don't know all the details, but it looks like that from the observer, me looking at that, and they have enough tire that they can set the gear ratio up long enough to seems like those cars and the Papadakis team car is what you're going to strive for to get your car to be like.
So are those cars really made up of unobtainium parts? Or is it just the really good crew chief and tuning and stuff that's setting the cars up? So realistically, we're kind of at the end of power and grip and a lot of those things, and it's just the fine tuning of getting everything perfect on track.
I think so.
Okay.
I think the sport evolved a lot, and then it started to get these cars are decent built cars. They're still garage built cars, but majority is not. It's not obtainable for the dude that's going to just build it out of his mom's garage and go, I'm going to compete in pro drifting and make it to the podium. You probably won't make it to the podium because you're going against crews that have been doing it for 18 years, crew chiefs like Papadakis or the ASD team that runs RTR. And then there's other teams in the mix of that too, but they're going to put all the effort into the development if they have the funding, and then that car is just a little bit more developed than my car. I wish my car was that developed. I know there's a lot more that this car could offer if a team with tons of money and a bunch of adults that were like engineers.
Adults.
Yeah, like I only have me and Mark or whoever the guy is at the time working with me, you know. So like we're doing the best we can.
It's interesting thinking about a lot of us get wrapped up in horsepower or some crazy sequential transmission or something, and the biggest change you've made, or I guess that made a difference that you're talking about, is just the rear coilover.
Well,
that's crazy, isn't it?
It's probably the front and rear too, but yes, it's
just a stroke thing, and you know, like
that helped
just deleting a problem with the car.
But like, so let's say I had all the money and I was like, I have a shock, you know, that's gonna like measure the travel of my like sensor back there, and we knew, and like I had a team of people 5 years ago, we would have figured that out year one and been like, that's an issue, and then my car would have been like this year one. But I just was doing what I could and like, you know, kind of like struggling at the beginning, which everyone would be that's starting out, and maybe like it's just like a dream we're chasing, but like some people like already established that and they're like just further into it, and so their car's like super developed. Or like look at other motorsports, like the first beginning years the cars probably weren't that great, and then like you know, how many years are we into NASCAR now, and look at those cars, you know?
Yeah, I feel like NASCAR, I don't know much about it, but I feel like they're limited more by the rule book sometimes and the engineering and everything. All right, so I'm just gonna state a number that probably isn't what you spend, but a team like yours doing 7 rounds of Formula D probably spends, you know, $200,000 or something.
8 rounds. Yeah.
8 rounds?
8 rounds of FD. We spend less than that by a little bit, but like.
Does that include the car build and everything?
That'll include like preseason car build, include wrecks, include like all the transport. A little less than that though.
I'm going somewhere else with that, so we don't have to get too into that. So say 200 grand-ish, give or take. Maybe you do it for 20% less or something. What if you suddenly had a sponsor like Red Bull or something that upped it by 5 times? What would you do for the 2022 season that you're currently limited on by money? That, because you're saying money is the biggest limiting factor in racing.
It's
correct?
like money equals time in my case.
Yeah.
What would I do?
What would you do if you had 5 times the budget? Because that would tell me what you want to do to the car.
Yeah.
And maybe that's not the car. Maybe it's a team. Maybe it's catering. Maybe it's, you know, flying everyone everywhere and, you know, having a more professional trailer set. What is the limiting factor right now that would make you
guys
win?
can see we're in this shop here. The shop is here so that I could like make money with this same building that can for free later at night or when we're done working to make money, build this. We would be like, all right, customer cars, see ya, you're not welcome here anymore. Every like hour would go into like that I could and like developing this better and testing it. And it's not like I would change cars. I really like this car. I would just stay with it. I like the motor, stay with it. But you would be able to then fine tune like 30% more in the back of the car and the front of the car, and then get me seat time. Because like, if you think about it, those crew chiefs, they are getting seat time by like years of experience. It's not seat time, they're just building and engineering and whatever. I need seat time, but I also need the car developed, so I need both, because like I'm kind of doing crew chief and driving at the same time, so that's what we would do.
That's interesting. So just getting rid of the customer cars would be the biggest thing.
Yeah, because like
your customers are like, oh, what?
I know, it sucks for them, but look, like that's how we were able to fund at the beginning, and now we were able to get some sponsored money rolling in. But like at the beginning, 100% out of our pocket, like just like credit cards maxed out, like you know, like.
I don't think the audience would think that that's the answer. I think the audience would think like, oh, he wants a fancier race car transmission, a fancier rear end. He wants a carbon Kevlar body. Because when we play Gran Turismo, you go faster by buying a new part.
It's literally
something like that. But you're going faster by getting rid of your business and not having to work on that.
It's like
so interesting.
I need more seat time as a driver, and I probably get like one of the least amount of seat times of all the like the Pro 1 driver. Not the least, but there's probably like the bottom 15 drivers. I'm in that amount of seat time because I'm trying to work to pay bills, you know?
Yeah.
And like I still drive my own. I probably wouldn't drive my truck. I would pay someone to drive my truck to the rounds.
Well, I always talk to people in your own position, and you're like, man, you look at Adam, you look at Chelsea, you look at all these guys, they're driving like 100 days a year.
That's so good.
And you're like, I drive 14 days a year,
you know? Probably 20.
Or 20,
Yeah, it's probably 20. And it's like, I'd love to drive 100.
It's hard to catch up to those guys because they have a better team. I don't want to insult the team, but you know what I mean. They have a more advanced team. They have a more advanced trailering thing. They have a more advanced catering thing. They have a more advanced car, they have a more advanced driver because of seat time and stuff. It's hard to catch those teams because they're rapidly advancing because of more money and more time and more manpower and everything and more experience. And they can just buy the more experience whenever they have a problem.
We're going to drive that car way more this next year. So that's not the same car, but it's the same chassis. It's less of everything, but we have plan. We got some budget for next year. That's,
we're doing Drift Week. Come drive with us this next 2 weeks.
I'm gonna come drive with you.
Good.
We're going to drive a lot more next year. So let's hope we see better results at the end of this coming year.
Okay. Well, I think that kind of sums everything up. Is there anything else to say on that subject?
No, it seems like we covered most of it.
Okay, cool.
If they have questions, you can answer them. If you need my help, just hit me up and I'll help answer the questions.
Well, I just wanted to congratulate you on, you've been running like the same car for so long. It looks awesome, or looks rad. It's so cool to see, like, you're synonymous with the Supra, kind of like, you know how, I'm sure you're a Supra guy, Arito.
Yeah.
Do you ever think about you're someone's like Arito? You're someone's hero? Isn't that cool?
That's true.
I mean, like, I
look at Arito all the time, like, he still likes Supras, even though he's, like, much older now.
Yeah. But, I mean, you are Arito to those younger kids and stuff. True. That's so cool. So remember that. Don't forget.
I forget that. Okay. Thanks for the reminder.
Thanks.